Hey Susan, today I'm going to be teaching you how to do a nice, simple, easy yet effective drag makeup look for like your first couple times out. Maybe you want to just dabble into drag without looking a hot fucking mess like a lot of queens do, let's be real. I've watched a lot of videos and I noticed that a lot of queens, when they are doing tutorial videos for beginners, kind of skip over some stuff that you do pick up quite quickly, but unless it's explained to you, you're not going to pick it up properly. Now, the first step before we can do anything to our face is moisturizing. I just use a CeraVe moisturizer. It's great, it's cheap, it's effective. And it's like it's a very simple formula, but that also has a couple ceramides in it that are just really nice for your skin. CeraVe is a very simple but very, very good, frequently recommended by dermatologists kind of tease brand. Oh look, I cut myself while shaving my eyebrows. Now, disclaimer, you do not need to shave your eyebrows to drag. You do not need to shave your eyebrows to drag by any means. I actually used to not shave my eyebrows. I have a tutorial up, which I will link, which goes in depth with my brow blocking method up here, one of the corners. Anyway, it goes in depth how I block them so that you can do that. But like, I'm just gonna start without brows because I don't have brows. But I'm just going to quickly give an explanation. So you want a glue stick. I use when I do block my brows and other people's brows, I use the Elmer's Disappearing Purple Small School Washable Glue Stick tease. Oh, and then you just go up into the brow, small little circles, all the way back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Then you want to take a eyebrow comb, or just like a normal comb, and you want to forcibly brush everything down first. So don't go up. A lot of people just say go up, 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 up. That's where you want to lay at the end. But brush down, and then once everything's brushed down, you gunk more glue up in it, and then you brush up, because there's gotta be glue underneath the hair to actually hold it to the face. Also, pro tip, before you do glue your eyebrow down, get an alcohol wipe, or just rubbing alcohol, and clean all of the oils off the skin around your eyebrows. Just to make sure the glue really sticks and the oils don't buckle the glue while it's drying. Now I guess we'll get into the actual tutorial. So we're going to start with foundation. I'm going to keep the foundation very, very simple. Let me just grab my beauty blender. It is dry. Let me go wet my beauty blender. That's your first tip. Get your beauty sponge, literally any beauty sponge. It doesn't need to be beauty blender. This is Juno & Co. It's cheaper. It's not the beauty blender. I think that's in frame. It's like a fuzzy velvet sponge, but you can use Eco Tools, you can use a dollar store sponge, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't recommend the triangles because they're kind of hard to use. I'd recommend a more egg-shaped one, but a sponge is a sponge, pretty much. I'm gonna go wet this quickly off camera. Woo, my sponge is now wet, and I've squeezed out. Now it is just lightly damp. If it's fully wet, it is going to dilute the foundation and not going to be a fun experience. Now, with your base, you don't need primer. Skip primer unless you have a big concern. If you're super, super oily, get an oil controlling primer and don't moisturize beforehand. That's how you tackle oily skin. But I have dry skin. Even if you have normal skin, normal skin particularly, you don't need a primer at all. Dry skin, maybe you need something with a little bit of hydration, something like the Too Faced Hangover, but there are a lot cheaper options. This is a more luxury option. For the most part, I'm going to be using cheap products because beginners probably won't have the more expensive high-end luxury products. If you want a pore filling base because you have enlarged like pores or holes in your face that are like visible, that's essentially a pore, then you want to fill them in. NYX pore filler, it's like $8, and it's and it's just as good as any higher end pore filling powder. But anyway, I'm going to go into the foundation. The foundation I'm going to be using is the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Foundation. It's a pretty cheap foundation. When I get on special, it's only $10 Australian, which is $5 American. But it's normally like, what, $20? That's 10 American-ish. I use two shades. Well, I'm going to be using two shades in this. I use more in my normal, and I don't just use this, I use some other products. But to make it less complicated for you guys, I'm using the shade True Ivory. So this is going to be my highlight shade. So it should just be lighter than your skin tone by a bit. And then your actual shade, this is Nude Beige. This is my actual skin tone. So I'm not sure if you can really see, but there is a difference in tone. One is a lot lighter than the other. This is actually a foundation that I've used on other people, and that's why I have it in my collection. Normally I'll use a concealer to highlight everything. But I'm also going to be skipping the cream contouring, because cream contouring is not something you need to worry about as a new queen. We can just do powder contouring. Powder contouring is a lot easier for newer queens to control, and it also means you need a lot less products, because even if you cream contour, you're going to need to powder contour over top to enforce it. Cream contour just kind of adds longevity to the contour. But while you're learning, I don't recommend it. So I'm just going to take the shade that matches your skin. Just ask the lady at the counter, hey, can you please match my skin tone? And then they will give you one that is at least a semi-decent match. And then you just gotta pump it onto the back of your hand, a couple squirts. And then you just whack it on with a sponge. The reason I do like the Maybelline one is because it is full enough coverage that it could cover my brows, even when I did cover brows. It's like really full coverage and cheap. From the drugstore, and it's easily accessible. Now with the foundation, you're just going to press it. Do not rub it. If you rub it, you will lose coverage. You want to stamp it in with the beauty sponge. Make sure you allot time to do your makeup. You can't, especially when you're beginning, you can't rush the makeup, because otherwise you're never going to learn how to do it properly. There are a lot of queens that rush their makeup before they actually know how to do makeup, and then their makeup never improves because they're always rushing it and they're not actually gaining anything like any makeup skill from it. If you run out of foundation, just apply more to your hand and apply more to the sponge. Let's normalize comedy queens having good makeup. It can be campy without being poorly done. Poorly done makeup does not mean campy makeup. Campy makeup should also be well done, but just be more stylized. Well done makeup, like Blue Hydrangeas is fairly campy. My normal drag makeup, that is not this one, is decently campy at times. I've worn like massive paper lashes, but I still like to think that it is well done. Just layer over the foundation wherever you think needs more coverage. It fully depends on your face what will need more coverage. But yeah, just make sure everything's really packed on. In all the areas that you want it to be packed on, and you're done with that. Now we're going to go, I also notice I've avoided this eye area and the top of my eye. That's because I'm going in with the lighter shade foundation now, which is going under the eye. It is not going on the eye necessarily, but you can definitely do that if you want to minimize the product you're using. You know what, actually, I haven't done it in forever. I've always been using eye primer, but I'll just use a light foundation on the eye and show you how to do it with the light foundation, because that, I feel, is more accessible to beginners. So now, you know what, I'm just gonna take the same sponge, fuck it. I'm not gonna overcomplicate it. And then I'm just gonna stamp it under the eye, and I'm bringing it up. So now there's a line going up from my eye and down under here. This is the shape we want. And if you want, and I'm going to do it, just bring the shape down the nose a little bit right at the end. It's kind of like a swoop. That's the shape you want, generally, for your highlight. Because it's just going to flatter most faces and feminize them. And right down the nose, you want that so that we can contour later and apply emphasis. Above the, in the middle of the forehead, essentially you want all of the middle portions of the face to be lighter than the outer portions, and that's going to make the face look smaller and more feminine. Now the under eye is always the part you want to be the absolute lightest. And now if there's too much product, instead of spreading it out more, flip your sponge over and use the other side to pick up the excess product. And oh god, this feels like a sin that I'm going over my eyelid with the lighter foundation. Now the reason I'm saying this feels like a sin, even though just about every drag queen does this, is because there is a little magical thing called eye primer. And now, eye primer, the one that I like to use while I'm doing it in drag is different from the one I use when I'm out of drag. Let me quickly grab them. So these are the two I use. It's the Urban Decay Primer Potion. This is a very makeup artist favorite one. And this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills color intensifying primer that comes in a very light shade and is very full coverage. That's what I use in drag. And essentially it's different textured concealer. Concealer is hydrating, these are waxy, so they won't crease in your eye or anything like that. And they'll just help the eyeshadow grip and blend and give you more depth of color. But that is, I guess, marginally less important in drag makeup that is normal makeup. Also, I'm just going to swipe down the neck a little bit because you don't need to maintain all of the coverage, but you do kind of want it to, in some way, blend, even though this is darker than my natural skin tone. Your drag foundation is better to be darker than lighter because lights wash you out. The reason that this is darker actually is because I've got studio lights in front of me, so my foundation, my face is gonna be washed out. That's how studio lights work, so you always go for a darker shade on camera. I have my camera shade, I have my real shade. And that's kind of how I operate. And then this chunk of sideburn is really annoying me, but I'm just gonna pretend it doesn't exist. So now we're going to go into powdering. So just get a translucent powder. I actually not gonna use translucent powder, because you know what, fuck translucent powder. Because this is actually probably gonna be more useful to you if you're only picking up one powder. So this is the light shade 15 Fit Me loose setting powder. We're gonna shake it a little bit. We're going to pick it, open it up, and now we can either pick it up with our sponge, we can pick it up with a brush, or we can pick it up with a little, or very big, because this is the one I got for when I was doing my eyebrows, because you do want to press powder onto the eyebrow, and it's very big, so it can pick up a lot. But powder puffs, this is what I use for drag makeup, because it really just gets that powder all up in there and coats everything, which is really what you want to just press in all of the powder. Which I would never do this in like real daytime makeup, but in drag makeup, the more powder, the better. It's going to keep the makeup on, it's going to make everything look nicer in photos, it's going to make everything look nicer on stage because you won't be as greasy and oily and gross. Because dewiness does not translate well normally in drag. You just really get everything nice and set down. So now that we all kind of almost look one shade again, there's still a little bit of a soft highlight under the eyes and in like the center, which is all we need because we're going to like enforce everything later with powders. Now we're going to go into the eyebrows. So eyebrows are something that is the most rushed over, in my opinion, in makeup tutorials. Because you really, when you're new to drag, you can't just go for it. So, first tip, get a smaller brush than you think you need. This is a teeny tiny angled brush, which means it is thin and it comes on a slant. This one's meant for eyeliner and not eyebrows. However, I do use it for my eyebrows because it gives me more precision. And most eyebrow brushes are designed to fill in and not completely draw on eyebrows. So, smaller is better. This is where the not makeup artist in me kicks in, because I would never do this if I was doing makeup on someone else. And it's technically unhygienic, but you can probably live in your makeup collection. Trixie Mattel does it, and it's just... Just kind of suck the brush and then shape it with your fingers to be very, very thin. But you didn't learn that from me. That is not something I would ever do, ever, no. I'm going to be using the James Charles palette for pretty much this entire look. You can use other palettes. This is a kind of not cheap palette. There's a mini version. I have the mini version as well, but this is what I keep on my desk. I do have some cheap ones I can recommend. This ColourPop Good Sport one, not good for eyebrows, but it is good for actual drag makeup. Like, well, not even drag makeup, just normal makeup, but anything for normal makeup that has some dark shades in it translates well for drag makeup. You don't need to spend a bunch. ColourPop has some really good palettes and they're very affordable. Even Revolution have some decent palettes that you can get away with that are like $8 for a palette. And that's Australian, so that's like what, $4 American for a palette? So it's, you can get some cheap makeup that you can really work with if you want to. Take it out once again. Now I'm going to dip into, it's like a, I'm gonna pull it up. So this is upside down, by the way, the palette. Closer to me, okay. And I'm going to go into this shade. So it's the one on the actual absolute top right-hand corner. It's kind of like a I'd say medium brown shade. I'm going to once again suck the brush with the powder on it, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go on the edge of our natural nose. And we're going to go look for where our natural eyebrow is. So this one, what I'm doing here is I'm lining this up with my natural nose edge. Now, where the natural eyebrow is, go about like maybe 1/2 centimeter above it. Just create a tiny little line. That's all you gotta do for now, and now we're gonna just gotta do the same on the other eye and get this nice and even. Line it up. Now, here's a real secret to brows. They don't need to be even. They just need to look well done, and people will think they're even. And well done isn't hard to achieve. So we're going to go back into the shade, and now we're just going to continue it up to about the outside of our pupil. So we're going to continue from the angle of the bottom of it, and we are only going to draw the bottom line. So see how we're working in stages. Now that's just up to the outside of the pupil when I'm looking forward. So, I've got to do that once again on the other eye. Bam. These are kind of even, which don't need to be fully even. Vague evenness is honestly fine. This brow is kind of a low brow for drag, but it's better to start with more low, natural, big dramatic drag makeup. But if you start with more natural-ish brows, it's good for beginners, because the higher the brow, the more space you have to fill and the more depth you have to create with eyeshadow, which is one of the parts beginners really struggle with. So now what we're going to do with the brow is we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to just kind of pick an angle. You can go straight out, which is what I'm going to do. You can go up a little bit more and just make it a straight brow, which doesn't look good on all people, but it does on some people if you go straight up. Or you can go more down. I'm going to go kind of like out and down just a tiny bit. That's before. That's with the extra line drawn in. So I'm not doing like a super dramatic. Actually, you know what, fuck it. Nah, I'm going to keep it like this for now. And then I'm going to do the same on the other eye. And now nose, eye, corner, nose, eye, corner. So that one doesn't line up. So general rule of thumb that you don't always need to obey, and frankly, I don't always obey. Nose in line with the corner of the eye, and line with the corner of the eyebrow. Nose in line with the corner of the eye, and line with the corner of the eyebrow. Super easy. Now we're going to go back into the shade again, and this is where we make the brow look well done. Now we're not going to be doing an ombre brow, because ombre brows kind of look a little bit beginner if you get them wrong. And also personally, they're not my vibe anymore. I used to do them a lot. But we're going to do like little almost hair stroke, but kind of comical hair stroke brows. Now any powder or anything you get on your lips doesn't matter, we're going to cover it up with the liquid lip. But what we're going to do at the front of the brow, after we've like pinched it and got it really thin, you can also just pinch your hands with a little bit of like water, just tie a bit of water on them. It will do the same thing, but I'm disgusting when I'm doing my own makeup and not other people's makeup. So we're just going to flick up and create like a little line. We're just going to keep going across the whole brow. So if I get nice and close, I've just been doing tiny little flicks with a very thinned out brush, and it's getting me all this texture, which is what we want. Now, you can choose to do whatever you want texture-wise. Like, you can do a couple of flicks that don't have a line under them. In the middle, you can have a line, you can do a bit of a fishtail, just kind of do what feels right. I also do prefer a thinner brow, but you can definitely thicken this brow up if you want to, and it will look just as gorgeous. No, here's the important part. You want to get thinner at the tail and come to a thin point. So there we go. This is my brow. So flick, flick, flick up to here. This is the final flick. And then I just kind of board it into a point. Now it's fine if your first couple brows aren't like this, because we're going to be cleaning this up. But don't expect, even though it's beginner friendly, this is not like a follow this tutorial once and then walk out the house. Follow this tutorial maybe twice, and then third time you can probably get away with leaving the house if you're progressing pretty well. Because it's not hard compared to a lot of other drag methods. And honestly, makeup isn't hard once you kind of work out the basics of it. It's just getting down the fundamental skills and coordination, and then you can do whatever you want with your face. And this is really good for teaching you every bit of skill without needing a plethora of any of the skill. So it's a good fundamental base. So like, for example, because we want control over the brush, we're holding the brush right near the end and leaving this handle exposed fully. That's going to give us more pressure and more control. Also, I didn't mention this, but this is the Morphe M160, 1/16, whatever that means. So it's just like thin angle brush, but literally any will do. I have a Jessup multi-pack from Amazon. It was sick and it worked really well. I use that still. It's just same thing on the other brow. So my brows, not fully even, but they look pretty well done. Like, if I do say so myself, I guess, because I can't really say it, but like, close, you can see some hair strokes. Looks nice, but it's not where we want it yet. We're going to take a darker brown. Any dark brown, it doesn't matter what you're using, just a dark brown, and we're going to add some extra dimension to this brow. So I'm taking the dark brown, it's just the one below it in the James Charles palette. For me, it could be anything for you, really. You can pick whatever you want. I recommend you start with brown brows because they look good with any wig color. Same process. Now we're going to start on the tail though. We're not going to do the front. And we're just going to add hair strokes to the tail, filling in the gaps but with lines. So you should be leaving some of the lighter color exposed and just drawing a couple lines, if that makes sense. So if you see at the tail, not really sure if you can, but there are lines that go through it, but it's not filling the whole thing in. And what we're going to do is we're going to continue the lines through pretty much the entire brow to add like extra definition and shadow. That brow, done, sickening. This brow, just do the exact same thing. We're going to do the cleanup phase. So the top we are not going to touch. You just don't touch the top, otherwise it's not going to look as nice. We are only going to touch the bottom, and we are just going to take our lighter foundation shade, mine is True Ivory, put a little bit down, and we're going to get a rounded concealer brush. Just looks like this. Nice and simple. And we're just going to put it in the little bit of foundation, get it all coated, and now we're just going to go underneath the brow, cleaning up any shape that we don't like. Now it's actually better to have a little bit more product on the brush, so I'm going to add a little bit more, so it's just a little bit more glidey and creamy. And holding our breath, just cleaning it up and trying to do it in as little hand movements as possible, because one hand movement, if you're holding it there and pivoting, it's going to be a really smooth movement. If you're going, it's going to look all jagged and wonky. And there we go. Bitch, that's a brow. And it wasn't that hard, really. Honestly, I struggle with ombre brows more than these brows. It's wild. And now if you decide you don't like the shape, you can build up the top section into a new shape and then carve the underneath to be like more arched or whatever you want. I really don't like how this brow has turned out because I erased the tail. Because the tail was not high enough. So what we're just going to do is we're going to get the brush that we used before. We're going to get whatever color corresponds. So if it's the tail that you want to fill in, get the darker shade. And we're just going to wing it down following the new angle we have created. Now, if we really do need to clear up the top, which I may have to, what you want to do is you want to grab a just cheap squared off brush. I'm looking for mine. I have a million brushes. You do not need a million brushes. This is literally Alpha was a $3 brush, $150 American. Just a square brush. That's it. We're gonna take the actual foundation shade because it's the top. We're We're going to put some of that down. We're going to grab it here. And now we're going to use the square edge to our advantage, right? And we're just going to place it here. Place, 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 place. Place, place, place. So we're stamping and dragging away. We are not going back and forth. And we're just laying everything up and getting a nice, neat line. I'm only doing it on the outer corner. I don't want to do it on the inner section because that's going to interfere with our brush strokes. But in the areas where we want that precision, we can clean it up. These eyebrows are not fully even, I'll be the first to admit that, but they are kind of sickening. Now, here's probably the most important piece of advice I can possibly give anyone. If you don't like how your eyebrows are, just continue with the makeup. Just skip the eye, just keep going. Because the eyebrows are always going to look off until you do the eyeshadow. Even if they're pretty much almost perfectly even, they're going to look off until you do the eyeshadow. And honestly, no one's looking for even eyebrows. They're looking for vaguely even eyebrows. No one has naturally symmetrical eyebrows. In fact, perfect symmetry is probably going to kind of make it look weird, which doesn't make sense, but like a very off brow, yeah, someone's going to notice it. Is it the end of the world? No. As long as the brow individually looks well done, we're going to go on to the eyes. Now, before we do the eyes, we're going to take this, our powder puff, and we're going to take our powder, which I did not realize I put back in my drawer. I'm a hot mess because I am bulk filming right now, because soon the house is going to have a screaming baby, and I'm probably not going to be able to film. Anyway, we're going to put powder just underneath our eyes. And what this is going to do is it's going to protect us from fallout. So that's when shadow, so eyeshadow, comes down off the eye as you are blending or applying it and onto the cheek. And then suddenly you have a pink cheek. So there we go. It's just like a little thin layer. It doesn't need to be thick. It just needs to be enough where you can still brush some off in a bit. And because we've already stamped in so much powder, the skin really isn't going to absorb much powder, so you'll be fine. Now I'm going to start working on the eyeshadow. So with the eyeshadow, you want a couple brushes. I'm going to simplify it. So first brush you're going to want to work with. This brush is a fluffy brush. So it is a pretty big brush, about the size of like my eye crease, like maybe a third of the overall space I'm working with when I'm doing this kind of look, but nothing too extreme. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into like, actually I'm going to use a cheap palette for this. I'm going to use the Colourpop Good Sport palette. It's just, I think it's maybe 14 bucks when I got it or something like that. And I'm going to be taking the shade High Hopes, which is a kind of light, medium, warm honey brown. I'm just going to stamp a little bit. I'm holding the end of the brush because I don't want to apply low pressure and I want it to blend out easily. Just on the outer corner. And bring it up and then blend, 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 blend. So if I'm being honest, this makeup isn't too dissimilar in the eyes from my normal boy makeup that I do. Because I'm going for a more natural look in the drag realm. But compared to normal people in my boy makeup, go pretty crackhead hooker woman when it comes to my eyes. And my eyebrows are a lot higher than they naturally belong. Just because I'm like, if I can raise my eyebrows higher and give myself more lid space and make myself look more engaged and awake, why don't I? Anyway, I'm just bringing it up fairly high. But here's the thing. I almost forgot to go with this. You want to place the shadow down near the bottom, right? And then you want to, after almost all of the product is off the brush, do small little circles up towards the brow, but not up to touching the brow. And what this is going to do while you're holding the end of the brush, very important it's the end, because then you have less pressure. And it's going to naturally just kind of buff everything until it disappears. And gives you like a nice, even fade out. There we go. Those are fairly even. And then we're just pulling the eyes up and back. So what we're doing is we're going and flicking off the corner of the eye towards the brow. There we go. That's the bulk of the shadow, honestly done, because we don't need to overcomplicate things. We're just going out for like our first time ever in drag moment. And now I'm going to bring the ends down the brow and just onto the top of the nose. And now this is where we're going to start adding the depth. So depth of color, we're going to get a smaller brush that is a little bit more dense but still kind of fluffy, so you can still blend with it. Now I'm going to be taking, firstly, it's like a burnt terracotta shade. So in this palette it's hooky, it's just that kind of shade up here. Now I'm going to be going right here in the corner of the eye, placing it and dragging it inwards. Place on the outer corner, drag inwards. Place on the outer corner, drag inwards. Place on the outer corner, drag inwards. And now I'm mixing the shades, both the dark purple in this palette and that one. And now we're going outer corner, inward, outer corner, inward, outer corner, inward, outer corner, inward. And bring it up to about halfway up where you blended the last shadow. So I've just been going outer corner, in, outer corner, in, outer corner, in. I went to like halfway up the end of the blend of the last shadow we did. Just gotta do the exact same thing. Start with just hooky, which is the more brown, dark brown, burnt terracotta shade. Once again, we don't want full control of the brush, so I'm just holding it on the outside. But yeah, you really don't need to overcomplicate makeup. Anything could be fixed. And it's just like building, essentially you want darker near the lash, dark around the crease, lighter on the outside. That's all you want. But the outer corner you want dark to push back. And you want this light to push forward. That's all you want to do. Don't overcomplicate it. And then we're just gonna buff everything in small circles with the last brush all over the entire look. And that's just going to diffuse out that dark shadow into like a seamless gradient with the lighter shadow. Same on the other side. Just buff everything all the way out. Bam. Look at that. That's some dramatic smokiness. But is it dramatic enough for me? Haha, no, bitch, this is drag. I'm going to close this palette up. I'm going to take the same brush, the same little brush that isn't that little, but in drag world, little brush. I'm just gonna go into literally any black. I'm using a new styles pack. You can get like a single black shadow from like Wet n Wild, $3. Work. And then I'm just gonna tap it right on the lash line, but in just a little bit. So if like you look here, I'm just tapping it there. It's like very slightly in from the outer corner, just so we don't accidentally blend it too far out on the outer corner. Just gonna stamp up in a little, like think just very, very slightly above where your natural crease ends. So like this kind of shape. Now this is not gonna be like our eyeliner or anything. This is just to add depth. And now I'm going to take the big fluffy brush once again, and this time I'm just going to buff back and forth just over the black. So I'm just going out high to the lines of the black. I didn't want to buff over the whole thing because I don't want my entire eye to turn black. I just want it to be like adding a little shadow to the bottom of the eye. Actually, because we are using concealer. And just all this gentle buffing back and forth until you're kind of happy with the blend. It doesn't need to be super, super blended, but you just want to not quite be able to tell where everything stops and starts, but tell that everything is separate. That's how you know that you've done it properly. I might do another video that's more beginner friendly, that is more like, I guess, classic drag and less, I guess you could call this modern drag, because I am a very modern drag kind of gal. In a lot of ways. I'm also a very old drag kind of gal in a lot of other ways though. Like, I do believe in big hair and not wearing dumb shake and go wigs like a lot of newer drag queens do. They just like, oh, I want to be a natural woman, natural fish, which is fine if that's your fantasy, but honey, that's not my fantasy. My fantasy is drag. Like, big, over the top. But also, I do like the kind of, not more natural makeup, because this is not natural, honey, but the more, like, I guess, I almost want to say artful makeup, or more precise makeup. I like the precision of the makeup. So I like keeping like details in the brows, details in the liner, details in the lips. I like pointing, I really don't feel like I'm in drag with the top eye right now because I'm not doing anything too dramatic. But once I'm in the whole geesh, you will see that this looks a whole lot more draggy than it is right now. Anyway, I'm going to take the lighter shade now. This is the shade we used before. I'm just going to put it on the brush that we used before, clear up the brow. Now I'm literally just going to press this just past the eyebrow and drag it in. Like that. Just like halfway. So I just pressed it against and went here. And now we're going to do a little bit of a sweep and neaten up that top part. So I'm going to try drawing a bit of a, like, almost half a semicircle across our eye. That is just nice and big. It goes above your natural crease. This is going to be our little cut crease moment because everything looks better with a cut crease. You can skip the cut crease and just do what I'm about to after the cut crease, but cut crease is way to go if you can get them down. I recommend you, after you do the brows, if you can get the brows nice and clean, then you're right to do a cut crease. If you did kind of struggle with cleaning up the brows, then I'd say don't do a cut crease. Just do the next alternative that I'm about to give you when I'm filling in my cut crease. Towards the end, like almost a little like straight line out, because I feel like it just lifts the eye out a little bit more. That's pretty much it. So I'm gonna get my little cloth that I've been wiping everything off on, wipe my hand once again. I normally wouldn't wipe my hand, but because I'm doing it differently, I'm just gonna keep it clean, because it's best practice to make sure you don't accidentally get anything anywhere. Now I'm just going to take a finger, little gentle tapping of the edge, just to marry it into the main shadow. Now we're going to take a shimmer shade, literally any shimmer. I'm going to use a bright yellow shimmer, you can use a pink shimmer, you can use any shimmer color that matches your look. I'm going to use the yellow in this one. And we're going to take either, you can take your finger, or you can take a flat, like round brush, like this, that has some density to it. I like to use this. Wait, no, that's the wrong one. That's one I like for my normal makeup when I'm doing less things. I like this. It's just like, same as concealer brush, but a little bit thicker across that way. I'm literally just gonna pick up a yellow shadow. This is Licious from this palette. It's a bright yellow shimmer. So a shimmer is like not a glitter, but it is very shiny. I'm just gonna stamp it in the same pattern as the cut crease. I'm not dragging, I'm stamping. Now, if you did not do the cut crease, pick up a little bit of that shade with your finger and just tap it in to the like inside of the eye vaguely without following a crease shape. Now we're gonna move on to the contouring. So contouring, I'm gonna just quickly explain the basics because some people might not understand what the basics are. Basics, if something is darker, it goes backwards in the view. If someone is lighter, it goes forward in the view. And it completely resculpts and adds different dimensions to the face than it actually has. So, I'm going to take this cheap bronzer. It's actually, I'm going to turn my fan off because I'm getting cold. But cheap bronzer, well actually it's not a bronzer, it's a contour because it's cool toned. But this is the Australis Sweet Light Chocolate Scented Bronzer. I was at Kmart, it was $4. I just went, this is darker than my normal contour, and I won't need to use as much eyeshadow to contour instead of using actual bronzer. But just anything cheap and darker than your skin by a decent amount. Gonna tap into it. Tap, tap, tap in. Haha. Now we're just gonna start at the ear and build that up. And we're gonna swipe it down to the mouth. To the corner of the mouth, but you don't want to quite hit the corner of the mouth. You will end about here with your swiping. And you always want to start this section at the temple and bring it forward after you've distributed the bulk of the product to the temple. Otherwise, it's not going to look as blended. Here's the thing, I tan really easy, so my drag shade matches me when I'm in the sun. This whole isolation and generally not wanting to go out has me fucking pale as shit. And I'm not about to change up my foundation shade just because I don't have a tan. Because I don't want to just suddenly be looking pasty in all of my posts. I also don't want to be like getting more product because I'm a cheap ass bitch. I'm a cheap ass bitch. I'm Joey J, Philippine Patrick. I can't say, oh. And I'm just gonna go ham under the chin. Just ham on that double chin. Just cover it all. And just around the edge of the face generally. I'm just kind of rounding out the chin, so I'm going right over top of the jaw line to just kind of make it more of a V shape. And with our nose, just gonna get a tight packer brush. So just like a little fluffy one with a little bit thin bristles. And I'm gonna go into the shade. I'm just gonna go in like a almost triangle, I wanna say. What do you mean I wanna fucking say? It's a fucking triangle. Just draw a triangle on your nose. Stunning. So I never just try to contour my nose, so I'm gonna really struggle here. But yeah, I'm just kind of going down the side and creating a bit of a triangle so it's thinner at the tip. And then this section I'm not leaving, so like the little triangle down the middle is where you don't want product, and the rest you want to product up. And blend it down just a little bit. And now we're going to take whatever powder is on our little thing. We're just gonna snap that nose in with some pressing of powder just on the edge of the contour. You're just slowly burning it up until you're happy with the snatchery. Now, I'm really all over the place, but you can either use a white eyeshadow for this next step, or you can use a white foundation powder like I am. It does the exact same thing. Foundation powder is just cheaper, but if you have it in a palette, use the eyeshadow. I'm just gonna open it up, get the same kind of brush. I have multiple of this brush. It's just a small, or medium, fluffy brush. Put it all up in the white. Get that white coated. And now we're just gonna go under the eye and emphasize this highlight. If you have a darker skin tone than me, don't use a white, use like either an off-white or maybe like a light, very light brown. Just kind of adjust everything based on your skin tone to be. So think my shade, if you're darker, shift every shade up. As many shades as the foundation go up, if that makes sense. So if you think we're about 5 foundation shades apart, lift everything 5 foundation shades up, or 5 just general shades up, and you'll be right to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to deepen it up. So I'm going to take this brush, I'm going to go into like a bit darker brown. I'm just going to use one of the Jamie Charles ones. But yeah, you just learn to contour your face, you just follow your bone structure pretty much, and then alter it once you learn how to do it with your bone structure. Now take it's like the lightest shade of brown that I used on my eye kind of shade, which is actually a warm brown. So I'm not meant to use it to contour, but in drag you can get away with incorrect colors. It's gonna go, actually it's honestly in drag better to you warm so you don't look ashy and on stage, so yeah. I'm just gonna do it on the corner and outer half, so like the outer half of the shadow. So this part, just the lighter color. This part, darker color blending into the lighter color. And now I'm just going directly, and this is the only part I'm actually doing with the dark color, over the square part of my jaw. And making it a straight line. And what that's gonna do is from front on, knocks out my jaw and makes my face look more pointed down the bottom. And now here's my big drag trick. Get the contour shade and go under your lip. Like in this little, if you have a line on your lip, under your lip from your chin, fill that in. And now take the powder and go over top of it. Blends into your skin, but it's still darker. What this is going to do is it's going to make your lip, when it's overdrawn, look like it's casting a shadow and make your lip look more naturally plump and add to the illusion. We're going to do liner now. Which eyeliner? It's a very scary concept, but you can't escape it because it just does so much. So I'm going to take the exact same brush that I use for my brows, do the exact same thing, but I'm going to go into a black, just a black eyeshadow. Don't use a liquid liner, don't use a gel liner. Black eyeshadow is the easiest thing to control when you're just getting into it. It isn't the absolute best when you are most experienced, but when you're getting into it, it is the easiest to control because it's going to be a little bit softer in how it looks. And I'm literally just going from the inner corner across the lash line. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just doing it across the lash line. And the reason I'm only doing it across the lash line is I'm just doing it to hide lashes, girl. I'm not doing it as like a wing because this black that I created gives the illusion of a wing. That's why I did the eyes like this, so that it's easy. And just literally line across the front. And this is just going to be hiding your lash line. That's all it's doing, hiding your lash line so that your lashes work. There is one trick that I do that I did not give you. I like to do my lip line while my foundation is wet because it glides more. However, when you were getting started, don't do that because it's going to glide a little bit too much and you're not going to have the resistance that you need to create all the control in your lip shape. And now I'm just going to take the same one with the white and knock off any of the black that fell. Just with light feathering, you don't want to hit hard at all. You want to literally as light as possible, just feather it off. Otherwise, you're going to push it in. You can bring it in a little bit more, wherever you want. You can do a little white underneath if you want. I don't recommend it when you're starting. This is all I recommend when you're starting. Just nice, neutral, works with everything, and simple. I'm going to be doing a bright red lip as the focal point of the face. This is up to you. You can totally do a wet red lip. If you are very nervous about your lips, do a nude lip. So we're going to make sure we sharpen the pencil before it touches our lips. It doesn't need to be fully sharp. The sharper it is, though, the better. But this just needs to be decently precise. So that you can see what I'm talking about, I've just lined, this is my natural Cupid's bow. This little section here is what I'm talking about when I say the Cupid's bow. These two lines on the natural lip. And now we're going to start on this, like the opposite one, and we're going to go across like that. And then we're going to go from, once again, the opposite one across. So what we've done is we've used our old Cupid's bow as a reference and lifted it. So it's the exact same Cupid's bow, so the Cupid's bow will look correct in shape and move with your lips better. But it makes the entire lip look more plump because the Cupid's bow isn't where it was. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to make it hit the corner of our mouth. So how we can do that is pull out the lip like this. Actually, I'm going to go past the corner of the mouth because we're going to go make the lip a little bit more draggy. You can totally just go to the corner of the mouth, and if so, you just pull this back and then go to the mouth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this, and we're just going to do a small line out from the lip. Small line, and I'm going to go from the corner of the mouth, the new mouth we're creating, so the corner of this small line. I'm going to meet it. So this is a pointed lip, but it's not a smiley pointed lip. It's more of a bitchy, pouty pointed lip we are creating, but still show expression and be like pissed. But it still does, like, it emphasizes all of your mouth movements as opposed to creating a brand new mouth movement that makes lip syncing harder like a smiley pointed lip can. Also, if you are wondering, who am I to teach someone how to do drag? My first time out in drag, I looked like this. You're welcome. So I'm teaching you a more natural, more adaptable drag look, but I did definitely do a very camp drag look successfully my first time going out the house in drag. For the underlip, we're going to make it really big. So I'm going to start here. So this is not the end of the point. This is our natural lips corner. Because if the top lip looks longer, it's going to make the lip look more feminine. It's also going to make the lip look heavier and more pouty. And honestly bigger, even though this section is smaller. So we're going to go down, and I'd say almost double our lip size overall, down the bottom. But you still just follow the line, just like maybe half a centimeter away from the lip. There we go, lip shape. So we've done, extend this by a little bit. We have drawn them, we have lifted the Cupid's bow. The Cupid's bow is a big trick I wanted to teach you, because that's what gets the lips moving correctly, even though they are overdrawn. And now we're just going to take a red lipstick. A red liquid lipstick is best because it will set down on its own. It will last all night. I use Maybelline Superstay. They last forever. They're cheap, they're good. And I'm just going to literally fill in the lines we have created. So now with the lashes, honestly, it's a look like this. You don't need the biggest lashes. You can just get away with a singular 301 lash or a singular any drag lash. However, I'm going to still use my hacked up lash. It's literally It's either a number 12 or a number 4 from Peak Cosmetics. And then it is like a water drag 301 that I've cut up. It's a bunch of hacked up lashes that make one lash. Anyway, I'm gonna get a lash glue. So that's important. Adhesive does not come on lashes. Anyway, we're gonna grab the lash, put the glue on, just the strip. Just the strip. There is glue in the strip. We're going to put it down. We're not going to touch it for about a minute. Now the reason we're not touching it for a minute is the glue needs to get tacky. I'm just gonna leave that for a bit. I guess I'm gonna talk to you guys. So if you made it this far into the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube things. The wig I'm using is that one. That's the wig that I'm gonna be wearing with this look. I actually styled it yesterday, because this bitch styles all of her own wigs. Pro tip, if you're going anywhere, if you're doing anything, take a straw with you. I also did forget mascara, just any black mascara, probably waterproof. Put it on the top lashes, you don't need to bother at the bottom lashes, unless you want to, but bottom lashes are a pain in the ass to do. Fuck it, I'm just gonna put the lashes on now. Literally just stick them on. Such a difference. Now, honestly, lashes this big are probably not good for this look. It's probably taking up all of the look, visually. But it never hurt to have a lash that is very big. A very big lash has never hurt anybody. Except when it has hurt people. But my paper lash is stabbing me in the eye. A whole different story for another time. But yeah, this is the face. I'm gonna go change the shirt and change the wig. And then I'll be right back. Hey Susan, I'm back. So, final look with the wig. Maybe I'll do a wig tutorial soon. Who knows, I probably won't because I'll be a screaming baby and I'm not gonna have time to style any more wigs. But, glamorous. So I would normally do my makeup lighter than this, because I just looked in real lighting that is not studio lighting. I look a little bit too dark. Might be a tad problematic. But in studio lighting, because everything does need to be darker because it gets so washed out with the lights and the light bouncing back and everything, this does look correct on camera. So yeah, just kind of experiment with what works for you. Get a feel for everything, and yeah, just have fun with it, honestly. Oh, I love these finger waves so much. This was not what I was going for at all with it. It was originally going to be like a teased up little ponytail moment. But I am loving these like old Hollywood vintage waves that I did. Well, thank you for watching the video. If you like what you've seen, remember to like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube things. What do you want to see next from me? Do you like my editing? Is there anything you want me to change? Do you want me to change the flow of the video? Is there anything you'd do differently? Is there anything you'd want me to break down in a future video? Do you want to see like how I secure my wigs or anything? Up to you. Subscribe, do that stuff, hit the bell so that you get notified, even though the bell doesn't work, even though I have a low subscriber count. I know the bell doesn't work, because literally my best friend hasn't been getting notifications, even though she has the bell ticked. Like, what the fuck? YouTube, so get on that. Bye, Susan.